Hey everyone, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing current players, and sometimes that means all the current players. I am one of your three fabulous co-hosts, Ryan Stacy, here today to talk to you about the 11th episode of Survivor 46, My Messy Sweet Little Friend. And I'm joined by my two messy sweet little friends, Derek Kubicek and Josh Wessler.
Speaking of messy friends, I feel like everyone left on the season is a messy friend. Well, almost everyone left on the season is a messy friend. Bust out the brooms, because we got some cleaning to do.
I'm ready to clean up the rest of the season. It's you guys have been talking about it being the messy season, another installment in the grouping of messy seasons. And after tonight, I'm excited. I'm excited for what is to come for the last couple of weeks of the season. I'm a little less worried about how the season might end now. So let's go.
I am ready to plant all of our flags. We're going to make this chapter 4 of the 4-part series up to this point of the train wreck seasons of Survivor. From Gabon to Nicaragua to San Juan del Sur, and now season 46. Because at this point, because if you go back to San Juan del Sur, that has a competent winner. Gabon and Nicaragua, not so much.
How dare you?
San Juan del Sur has a competent winner, but it wasn't. The train wreck really didn't stop until the finale, and we're an episode out, and it's been so chaotic up to this point that I'm ready to shove this in there.
And if I remember correctly, the finale was pretty boring, wasn't it?
No, the final 5 was really good because that was when Natalie pulled the old switcheroo and knocked out Baylor. And then from 4 on, it was kind of straightforward.
I'm curious if we'll get something similar.
Yeah,
this season.
Either way, I agree with Ryan. I think Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and I think we're going to place the crown, and so we have to hang our heads a little bit, whether that's in respect or in in some kind of agreement that we have to look away. We're here. This is a messy season, and the result tonight is super funny. So with that, I'd rather just get into spoilers here. 3, 2, last chance, 1, 3 straight idle in the pocket blindsides. Have we ever had this?
Boy, I don't know.
I doubt it.
I don't think
I don't know
so.
if we've had 3 people go home with idols in their pockets an entire season before.
This is absurd. And every time it's the same thing. Q's going home. No.
And speaking of Q, I thought of this, and I've been saving it for the podcast because there's the phrase out there. So-and-so wants all the smoke. Q wants all the smoke. I would like to slightly amend that. Q is the smoke, and these people cannot catch him. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. It's Sirius Black from Harry Potter. They cannot get him out. They can't do it, and it's so funny to watch. Why do people want Q out of the game, Ryan?
So I have 2 thoughts right now. First of all, it's getting smoky at this barbecue. Second, the line is like trying to catch smoke with your. I can't even do an impression for Prisoner of Azkaban. This is the second time Prisoner of Azkaban is brought up to me today, and that line is stupid. Trying to catch smoke with your brain. It's a bad line, I think, in Prisoner of Azkaban.
No!
I like the line.
And I know this is off topic, but I just want to go ahead and put this out in the universe so everyone knows where I stand. Out of the 8 Harry Potter movies, we're not counting Fantastic Beasts.
Ryan, don't even go there.
Prisoner of Azkaban is the worst of the 8.
Oh.
I knew where it was going because he's been... We're planting all kinds of flags tonight. Ryan planted this flag in the friend group like 7 or 8 years ago. And
no, it's like 10 now.
We're old. He was as wrong then as he is now. Artistically speaking, Prisoner of Azkaban is the most unique, the tone is the most diversified, and it's a very well-constructed movie relative to the book as a standalone installment. The acting is fantastic, the themes are consistent, the Dementors are terrifying, and Ryan, you are completely and utterly wrong. The Goblet of Fire exists. How dare you speak?
Prisoner of Azkaban's good.
Jeez, Derek.
There's your TikTok, Josh.
It's no Half-Blood Prince. I'll say that much.
Now, we can agree that Half-Blood Prince is the best.
I got roasted at work today for saying this opinion as well. And Does it look like I care?
I need to rewatch them all. I haven't had my letterbox for long enough where I actually rank movies and remember what my rankings are. So I'm sure at one point I ranked them in my head. I have a terrible memory. We all know this. You know this, listeners, from the Rewind series. I have a terrible memory.
Our memorability correspondent, everybody.
So as far as I know, any of them are the worst ones.
Now that we get that out of the way, the real important Harry Potter conversation. Should we talk about some Survivor?
Let's do it.
Speaking of being the worst of something, this cast, there's so much bad gameplay. Like, seriously, tonight was really bad for gameplay. There's a couple people who were fine, but this was not good for, like, almost anybody.
This is the classic, there was a car crash, and part of the cast was involved in this, but then all the other cast members saw the crash, took their eyes off the road, and also crashed.
Yep. Just drove straight to it.
Like, what was it? Charlie at Tribal Council was talking about the dominoes started falling, and you hope that it ends up knocking the right person out of the game. The dominoes all fell, but they all fell in completely random directions, and they knocked themselves over.
It was more like Jenga than dominoes.
Or a Kerplunk. You guys remember that game?
I love Kerplunk.
If I ever get on Survivor, I'll make a Kerplunk reference.
Well, remember they did the Kerplunk challenge in Samoa.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bring it back, Jeff.
Oh,
Like the supersized Kerplunk.
Yeah, with coconuts.
I'll bring it up. When I get on Survivor, I'm going to bring up Kerplunk. Jeff, you just have to hope that you pulled out the right strand of spaghetti and all the marbles don't come crashing down on top of you.
Or pull out the right Twizzler. All right, should we get into the episode proper now that we've gone completely off the rails, just like this season?
Sure. One thing before we jump into the episode, I did really want to shout out a message that we got on Twitter. It was from Jeff. It is in relation to last week's episode. He mentioned that he got his wife to start listening to our podcast. Thank you, Jeff, and welcome to Jeff's wife.
Jeff Probst?
The Jeff.
Probably not. And he said, and immediately after our last episode, she decided that they needed to eat at Applebee's. Well done, gents. Now get that ad money.
Derek and I did go to Applebee's on Friday.
Shark Bowl. Ooh-ha.
Yeah, we got shark bowls. I got the chicken and shrimp, the bourbon street chicken and shrimp.
And then I got the classic combo because neither of us had room for the bourbon.
Yeah,
street
we didn't
burger.
have enough room for the bourbon burger.
Oh, nice.
Anyway,
and I was out of town, so I was not there to join. If you want to see a fun picture of Derek, go to any of our social media, and there will be a nice little picture of him on there.
I was trying to be the Insta influencer with the hands flat on the table, but it was very ham-fisted, much like Survivor's product placement.
And we love it.
And we love it. Do more of it. That's not an indictment, Survivor. Okay, episode proper.
Yes. Now that we've gone we're completely on track. No detour so far. We're just going exactly where we were supposed to go.
We are the giant pendulum in Prisoner of Azkaban. We've swung from one side to the other, and now we're back.
Jesus Christ. All right, let's get into the episode.
This is why we only retained half of our listeners.
We were doing so well. So we get back to camp. Kenzie's kind of pissed she wasn't part of the plan, so she's going to go off on her own and mope for a little bit. And Charlie is going to be the one. He's taking a leaf out of Maria's book from last week. He's going to be the one to go over and comfort her. Yes, love this. Just be nice. Be a nice person.
It was kind of funny, just the subtle hints that Charlie was trying to drop during this conversation about him being ready to take out Maria, and Kenzie was just having none of it. Like, she was just focusing on, you know, what had just happened with the vote, and even started talking about like idols and whatnot, and needing to go search for that. And Charlie's just like, yeah, you know, the time's gonna come, and just no interaction with Kenzie.
And I thought it was bad from Kenzie to be mopey to Charlie. That was my move. It was my move.
Well, then you should have made it.
Yep, exactly. While they're gone, Maria is going to pitch a final five to Q, Liz, and Ben, and bring in Charlie. And I'm just like, that's a great final five for Maria. It's real easy to pitch a final five when you're the winner of that five.
You got to be careful if you're not Maria, hearing Maria make that pitch, because nobody there should want to go to final five with Maria.
No, absolutely not.
Like, don't chance it at this point.
Venus brings up a great point. Like, hey, we should turn things on the Sega 3. They're really running things here.
And Venus, for once, is right in line with what the Castaway Consultants are thinking and have been saying for a couple episodes that they should be considered. We've been surprised that it hasn't been brought up, at least in the edit, right? 1% of 1%, yada, yada, yada. But we'd have to think that if there was a serious movement to take out a Siga, that we would have seen it by now.
I just realized something. The last remaining member of Nami is Liz. The last one standing, like we all predicted.
Just like everybody. Honestly, though, I could
Actually,
have
it does
predicted
make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, but like after episode 1...
After episode 1, she was the least likely to win the game.
I
And you
guess.
know what? She
Sounds
still,
like third
She
place.
still is.
So we're going to get a little idol fever action. Everyone's going to go idol hunting. They take a little while to get going. Y'all need to be more like Rick Devens or Ben Driebergen and just go.
Sounds like Q was doing that, so I guess good for Q on this
Yep.
front. He needs it. He needs to do something. And I don't think he's sitting idle, but he needs to start differentiating and planning who he's going to the final 3 with, which should be Liz and Venus.
Yep.
Just throwing that out there. And we all agree that those 3 need to go with each other.
Mm-hmm. That should be the final 3.
Or even like Tony searching for idols in the middle of the night.
Sure.
No one, everyone does it right at the crack of dawn. I understand, easier to see, but it's kind of surprising that nobody tried at all at night.
They're tired. Well, you could sleep when you're dead. Or when you're voted
Liz.
out.
Or
When you're
everybody else
Liz.
is searching for idols.
Or when the game's over. You'll be fine.
There's only like 6 days left.
Yeah, you'll be fine. I say that as someone who desperately needs sleep to function, like lots of it. I sleep a lot. I love sleeping. It's like my favorite thing to do. I like to sleep and I like to watch Survivor.
What else is there?
What else is there? But Venus is going to end up finding the hidden immunity idol, and nothing can go wrong.
It was insightful. She said she knows where Tiffany found her idol, and she knows where
Randon.
or where Randon found his idol.
Rest in peace.
So she knew, generally speaking, where not to look. And I liked that, because if the idol has been hidden there, odds are it'll be hidden somewhere else. So there was something to that.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that insight.
So everyone's going to talk about how close Maria and Q have gotten. So there's chat about either taking out Maria or maybe Q next. And we get that from Liz and Kenzie and Venus, and they want to bring in Charlie to do that, just to mix things up. And I definitely agree on the taking out Maria part. Liz and Venus, you want to go to the end with Q. And Liz is going to complain this entire episode about how Q's such an a-hole and just say all these horrible things about him, and she doesn't understand why anyone's keeping him in the game. And I'm like, Liz, you just said it.
There's your answer.
And I'm going to fault Liz a little bit more than the others on this, just because we get actual verbalized reasonings from someone like Venus, who says Q is the biggest threat in the game, or like Q can win the game if he gets to the end. I don't know if she actually believes this, but at least her reasoning isn't, well, Q's an a-hole.
Sure, yep. It's better reasoning. I think it's completely skewed reasoning. Like, I think she's completely delusional, but Liz is literally wrong. And I mean, it's really bad because we know she watches Survivor every week after Applebee's. Like, have you learned nothing?
This is me. I like to read between the lines sometimes. If you are someone watching Survivor and you are wealthy, you have money, I can see you watching Survivor through a completely different lens, or even just playing as someone with a different lens where, like, you want to get rid of the person who's making you miserable. You're not as worried about getting the money.
Sure.
I think Liz has lost sight of the prize somewhat, because she's not thinking about who can I beat at the end. She's thinking about how she's feeling right now, which is incredibly hungry and incredibly angry at Q.
Yep.
I could be completely wrong on that.
That makes sense.
Half of what we do on this podcast is unfortunately put words in other people's mouths, and we also know that they've signed NDAs, so even if Liz wanted to come and talk to us, she couldn't. So Liz, big fan of the podcast. We'll talk to you in 5 years, whatever the NDA is for. So I think that might be something that's going on here. So if you're wealthy and going on Survivor and you want to win, keep your eye on the prize.
Yep, that's the whole point. And like we always say, if your goal on Survivor is not to win, well, that's your prerogative, whatever.
If you're here to win 1 million hearts, do what you want.
Yeah, but that's not what this podcast is about. We're consultants.
We're a little game body, but that's kind of the point.
Immunity challenge. Maria is going to end up winning immunity, so she's not going home tonight. Ruining my prediction. That's fine. But she gets to bring 2 people on reward with her. First one is Ben, and apparently Ben is just a physical wreck, so nobody's mad about the Ben pick.
Ben's crying.
Yeah, Ben's crying with joy. And then she makes a statement and basically says she wants to pick someone who is also falling apart and not worry so much about the strategy side of things. She spends approximately 45 minutes standing there thinking about it. Jeff will say it's the longest anyone has ever spent trying to pick someone to go on reward. And that on its own is terrible. You just need to make your decision and roll with it, whatever it is. And you know, we've said before, don't win rewards, but this is an immunity challenge with rewards, so I get it.
Yep.
It's fine.
And Maria says that exact same thing too later.
You know, that's the fun part here.
Maria, big fan of the podcast.
Yeah.
She knows not to win rewards.
Exactly.
Maria, talk to you in 5 years. See you in 5 years. You can join Liz.
But she's gonna put this whole like song and dance show, and people are gonna call it an act later, and you know she's gonna say this was true and authentic. And I do kind of believe that this was a hard decision, but that doesn't matter. It took you for freaking ever to decide. Just make a decision. Dragging it out like this makes everyone mad, and in the end, she's gonna make Q and Liz play rock paper scissors. Oh, let me step back. First, she makes Q, Liz, and Venus all give a pitch on why they should be picked. Then she makes Q and Liz play rock paper scissors for the spot, and Q wins, and everybody is angry except Q. It was just like, Maria, you did so well winning this challenge, and you completely blew like all the goodwill you had with anybody except Q and Ben. Good job.
Yeah, I think inauthentic is the right way to describe it. Like, Maria is doing her best to try and avoid rubbing anyone the wrong way and burning anyone here. Like you said, just pick someone, because just hemming and hawing and trying to figure it out, whether your thought process is actually trying to feed the person who needs sustenance the most, or if it is purely a strategic move, thinking about it this long, everyone is just going to assume that you're acting in your own self-interest now and trying to improve your own image in the game with whatever is going to end up happening, let alone the fact that she's going to pit people against each other or make them essentially plead their case. Oh, it was terrible.
It was really bad.
I've got another idea. Pick Ben, because he's a physical wreck, and then pick Liz.
Yep.
Because don't bring Charlie. He's your number one. You need to make sure you have an ear on the beach and someone to keep the fires under control. And if Charlie's on the beach, Q isn't going to try and scheme against anyone. And if he tries to scheme against Liz and you're Maria, who cares? It doesn't matter.
You want to keep the people the shakiest in your alliance happy. And, you know, Ben, obviously, he's a wreck, and, you know, that's one thing.
Yep.
Liz is the right move. Even though she just got some rice, pick Liz.
Yes.
Because she's at the bottom of your alliance, a little wavery, and just lock her in a little bit more.
And Q just went on reward.
Yep.
It's completely reasonable not to bring him on a second one. Like, even Q was like, oh, I have a shot?
I don't feel bad, but I shouldn't be here. Okay, sure.
Now, again, because Q wants all the smoke and is simultaneously the smoke, I'm so happy he got to go eat 23 pieces of pizza in roughly 46 bites. But this is a bad move.
This was very bad.
And clearly no one is going to be working with Venus, so you don't even need to consider like the consequences of leaving her at the beach.
That's the perfect thing about having somebody in your season who nobody likes and is kind of an outcast. And yeah, they may be a physical wreck, but who cares? It's Venus.
Like, she can quit if she wants.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those kinds of things where it's just advantageous to keep stomping on somebody. Is it nice? No, no one ever said Survivor was nice.
Q said it best.
Yep.
This isn't fair.
No one ever said Survivor was fair. No one ever said Survivor was nice. It's a game.
Yeah.
You don't have to play if you don't want to.
And by the way, I love that Venus is absolutely not the kind of person who would ever quit. Quite the opposite. Yep. She
thinks she's winning the game.
Pedal to the metal. She thinks she's winning, and you could never tell her different. And goodness me, do I love her for it.
Yep. So Charlie, Kenzie, Venus, and Liz, they're going to get back to camp and proceed to just roast Maria for her picks. Even Charlie is just throwing gas at the fire because he doesn't care all that much, but he's just like, yeah, let them be mad. Not at me. They're mad at Maria. This is great. This
is the perfect opportunity for attention to go on not only Maria, but he uses it to get attention on Q too, and start linking the two together more and more. It's like, oh, she really did actually just want Q there in the end. Otherwise, why would she even consider it? Yeah, it went to rock, paper, scissors, but she wanted to pick Q the entire time. This was great.
Now, I like Charlie adding fuel to the fire. What I didn't love, much like Survivor product placement, he was saying, as far as I'm concerned, Q is Maria's number one now.
No, I loved it. It was great.
Like if you
It seemed a little phony.
if you've seen the movie Inception, right? The idea is to plant a small seed. You start spinning the top, and then you just let it fester.
Yeah.
He planted all the vines. Like, this was not planting a seed. This was transplanting an idea into a non-native climate and hoping that it's gonna take.
Yeah, he's just somewhere like, I'll be honest, I'm getting a little worried about how close those two are.
Or what you just say is, as long as Maria's not around, I just want you guys to know the time is coming to take out Maria. She's safe tonight.
I wouldn't say that in this group setting with a Venus there.
You know what? You're right. I forgot that
that's
Venus
how you
was
get
there.
it turned on you.
You're right. I forgot that Venus was there because Charlie's not safe tonight. Okay.
I don't like group setting
Reel it back.
for names.
Reel it back.
Don't pitch names in group settings.
Reel it
One-on-one.
back.
One-on-one.
Especially when it's talking about your number
Yeah.
one. We saw this with Kenzie and Tiffany. The second that Kenzie went up to a group with Maria and all of them, the second that she left, oh man, maybe we should turn this on Kenzie.
So maybe it's like, y'all know that Maria's been a ride or die for me for a while, just based on how we voted. I can't defend this.
Well, time for her to die.
It's a bit much, but I like it.
So the Q is kind of the plan now they're discussing, and Charlie's like, yeah, that's fine because it's not Charlie. And let's get this out of the way. Maria has immunity. Take her off the table. Charlie should go home tonight. Period.
Charlie should be the target. If it can't be Charlie, it should be Kenzie.
And it can be Charlie.
And it can be.
It absolutely. There's no reason it can't be Charlie, other than the fact that there's a couple of people on the season who won't get along, and Charlie's name never gets brought up.
And there are a few ways to do this. And what's hard is we've been fed the line a couple times this episode that Q is in Maria's pocket. Now, without hardware, you need 4 people to do this. It's not going to be Ben. It's not going to be Maria. And certainly not going to be Charlie. He can't vote for himself. So you need Q.
Yep.
If Q is self-aware, and he has shown that he has some glimpses of self-awareness, he'll vote Charlie out. I think he would go for that. But people would need to get off their high horse and go and talk to Q.
Liz needs to stop targeting Q. Venus needs to stop targeting Q. Kenzie needs to stop targeting Q, and they need to turn their focus on the people who can actually win.
Here's the thing, and I think this has a lot to do with the whole train wreck season aspect of it, is I think that a majority of this cast is so lacking in self-awareness. Not even self-awareness, but overall game awareness, where like someone like Venus, she thinks she's winning this season.
Yep.
She thinks she's at the top of the world. She's been in every single vote except for this last one. I don't think she really cares if it's Charlie, because I think that she thinks that she beats everyone at the end. Liz and Venus also think that Q is is a big threat to be taking out, just because of why? Because he's been a big focus and has been surviving each and every single vote. Ben, I don't know what Ben is doing. I don't think Ben's a good enough player.
Ben's not a good player either. But for Ben, let's say he wants to keep Siggy together for at least now. Let's start there. And you have Q. Okay, cool. So that leaves Venus, Liz, and Kenzie. We'll take out Kenzie. Clearly. Like, I get Venus is annoying and aggressive and a little chaotic, but Kenzie's good at the game and Venus is not.
And I think I'm maybe a little bit more frustrated with someone like Kenzie just because she's a competent player.
Yeah.
The rest I don't think are, for many different reasons.
We have 3 competent players and 4 non-competent players.
So, like, she should be able to recognize, like, okay, I need to take out 2 people here. I need to take out Maria and Charlie. Maria's protected. Let's take out Charlie. Now, if she thinks that, she doesn't want to be a target herself and that this isn't the right time, that's a different discussion, I would say.
And I was going to actually back that up. There's only 2 people that I'm not really mad at if they're targeting Venus or Q. I don't know why these names are coming to my head right now. Those 2 are Maria and Kenzie, because in my dank down, those are my top 2. Is Maria, then Kenzie. So Maria can't be touched tonight. So Kenzie just has to put herself in a decent position to stay where she's at, not be the target. And if everyone wants either Q or Venus, Kenzie should possibly be the first one to raise her hand and be like, that sounds fine to me.
And I would agree, and I'm going to throw Charlie in there with Kenzie. I think they're both in the similar spot.
I think it is similar, but I think that Kenzie, just based on jury makeup and social connections, is in a better spot to win the game right now than Charlie is. I think Charlie should probably angle much more seriously for Kenzie than Kenzie for Charlie. Obviously, our opinions may differ.
Yeah, our opinions differ there.
Your mileage may vary. I get that. But for me, Kenzie can target anybody because Maria is not vulnerable.
Sure.
For those three, I think going back to I don't even remember what season it was, but the good old like goat slaughter. Like I think that is a very viable option at this stage of the game for those three players.
Island of the Idol strat.
Take them out so they don't do exactly what you're saying. Hopefully gain some sort of aspect of self-awareness and go for you guys instead.
Well, especially when the goats all want to kill each other.
Yeah.
They all think that the other ones are either jerks or big threats to win the game or are ultimately chaotic, which 2 of those 3 are correct.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's so weird. It's almost like the goats are driving the vote and the people who can actually win are like, yes, I'll make my move a little bit later.
And they're driving the vote against each other because, obviously you'd want to assemble the goat army, ideally, if we're going to have a bunch of goats, goat army assembled. But no. It's 2 goat armies and they're fighting each other. Mm-hmm. And then everyone else is just like, yes, fight. It's like the Hunger Games.
What's that line from Hands Held High? When the rich wage war, it's the poor who die.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
They're watching from their ivory towers. Q, Liz, Venus, and Ben slaughter each other.
Oh, boy.
Excellent.
When you talk about microcosms of society, man, we are really getting in the weeds tonight.
Hey, this is what happens when you just get like a bunch of randos because you put a bunch of crazy people on an island, crazy things happen.
And it's messy.
Q, Marie, and Ben, they're going to discuss taking out Venus because she's just a general menace to the island.
Good enough reason for me.
Like, yeah, she's chaos incarnate. That's fine and dandy, but she can't win. Take out Kenzie.
She is kind of pariah, similar to Chaos Cass.
I think even more so because there were some people who liked Chaos Cass. Maybe down in Cagayan, but in Cambodia, there's a lot of people who like Cass.
Yeah, and
that person was not Chaos Cass. That was reversed almost.
I'm referring to Cagayan.
Yeah, okay. Nobody liked Cagayan Cass.
Yeah. Where she was a little bit too forward, a little bit too honest, forthright, pushy. Oh, Venus's comp might be Chaos Cass.
But here's the crazy thing.
V1.
Cass is more self-aware than Venus.
The edit did not go out of its way to dunk on Cass. Tony was doing that for the edit. But Cass, big fan of the podcast. It's been 5 years. You can come talk to us whenever you want. Please come and tell me why we're so bad at this. Because we've never played. I get it. But for everyone else who is, Venus is the target, Control-C, Control-V for everything we just said about targeting Q. It's the same thing, I think.
So Maria, she's going to try to apologize to like Liz, Venus, and Kenzie. Liz is pissed, and she starts just talking trash about how, like, why would you pick Q? He's the worst person ever. He's the devil and blah, blah, blah. Just saying all these horrible things about him. Q's right behind her. Maria's like, yeah, Liz, behind you. It's Q.
And Liz doesn't care.
Yeah.
And then Liz does the Liz thing where she doubles down. She's like, I don't care who's listening. I mean... Someone who wants to win the game would care who's listening. I almost think it's not the goal anymore. But we can't.
I don't know.
But we can't talk about that, right?
I don't know what the goal is, but I know what it should be, and we can talk about what you should do.
Right.
If this is your goal.
Right.
It's all we can do.
Related to the conversation of when Charlie and Q were talking, we did get a message from Brandon on Twitter saying if Charlie actually decides to take out Q instead, he says, I think Venus has a legitimate chance to claim taking out Q, Maria, Ben, and Charlie on her way to a Kenzie, Liz, Venus final 3 and potentially winning the game. Now, no, that's going to happen because Venus gets taken out here.
If we all go in that way, that's great. You have to be liked to win Survivor. She's not winning.
And the other part, we've already been shown that Venus thinks these are her moves, but they're not. And it's in the worst way possible. It's where people just kind of know where it's going and they'll bring her in last second just to keep her quiet and keep her happy. But it's not, I think, due to skill of her own. I've seen too many instances of her being very unself-aware. But what I would rather phrase this question as for you guys, because it's still pertinent to the episode, what should Charlie do? Because Charlie finds himself in the middle. We all agree that Charlie probably shouldn't be in the middle if everyone here was playing optimally.
Right. So Charlie's in the middle between Venus or Q. One of these two is going. Who should Charlie go for? Honestly, so at first I would say Q, because he's more of a challenge threat than Venus. I don't care what they say. Q is more of a challenge threat than Venus. And Charlie is the biggest challenge threat. He could win out. Very, very real possibility he could win out.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. It's another reason to vote out Charlie.
Yep. However, things change slightly because Charlie and Venus are going to talk. And basically, Venus wants Charlie to prove that he can be trusted by voting out Q tonight. And then they'll talk in the next episode about making a Final Four deal. And she kind of hints to maybe having something up her sleeves. So Charlie's like, well, why can't we make the deal now? The classic Penner mistake in Philippines. Make the deal. Someone offers you a deal, you make it. And what are you implying there, Venus? What do you got up your sleeves? And because she doesn't want to make the Final Four deal with him now, and because she won't fully commit to whatever she's saying and she's just dropping vague hints, that makes Venus a little more chaotic, a little more dangerous, where I can see maybe voting for her and that she'll maybe play her advantage, flushing it, and Q goes out in the crossfire. Either way is fine. I don't care.
So this is going to get us into eventually if the right person went home or not. I know we're just looking at it from Charlie's perspective, and I think it's the most important one, I think, just right now. And I'm having a really difficult time with it because I think that, you know, with a few right moves, Venus could put herself in a position to make some waves in this game. It doesn't seem like Q is going to be that type of player anymore. From Charlie's point of view, though, his number one thing that he should be thinking about is how he's going to be taking out Maria when she becomes vulnerable again. And exactly what Venus is saying, and what both of them are saying is, you know, if you make a move now on like a Q, then we can get a solid 4 together at 6, and that can be the Final Four. Sure, if you get taken out at Final Four, it sucks.
Yep.
Whatever. You made it to Final Four at least, and you gave yourself a shot to make it to Final Tribal. If he takes out someone like Venus now, where are the numbers in order to be able to take out Maria? Because if you're looking at people on Maria's side, then she's going to still have Q. And probably Ben. I don't see Ben flipping. Ben seems like the type of player who's just going to be loyal to the end, even if it's not best for his game, just because I don't think he's a good enough Survivor player to turn on someone like Maria. So depending on if you think that Ben is closer to you, then maybe you'll be able to do it. But if you think that he's closer to Maria, you're not going to have enough numbers.
I do think Ben is closest to Charlie. I think that's been established on the show.
Enough to turn against Maria?
That's the
Because
question.
I don't... It doesn't seem like Maria's trying to turn on Charlie, at least yet. There hasn't been really any hints about something like that. So maybe that's going to, you know, really just dampen things with Ben if Charlie comes to him and says, like, hey, I think we need to take out Maria. That might hurt that relationship.
For me, for Charlie, and this is just for Charlie, the pros and cons between the two are very close. It's a game of inches, and I'm just going to... I know it's a little boring. I'm going to default to trusting Charlie on this one. When we get into who should go home, that's a whole other conversation. But for Charlie, could go either way.
Right. I don't want to put too much stock into the Venus threatens to have something, so that's the reason to take her out. I think generally, though, Q is a more game-centric player. And as a game player himself, Charlie knows that it is in Q's best interest to vote out Maria eventually, and Q will go along with that. Whereas Venus might just as well do something to try and turn it on Charlie if he were to try and make a move with her. In the past, I've said this, and granted I was less learned on Survivor back then, but sometimes it's just better to cut out the X Factor, to cut the chaos. So if Charlie, like Ryan is saying, deems that it's best for his game to take out Venus, I think I would agree. I will say I agree. I agree it's better to take out the chaos because you know you can more reliably count on Q to help you take out Maria.
I think all of your points are very valid, though, Josh.
I agree. Absolutely.
And that's where it's going to completely come down to, and I don't know what Charlie's thinking about this, but if he can get Ben to go against Maria.
Yep.
If that's the case, then that's fine. Then Venus is perfectly fine to take out here. If that's not the case, then I don't think that this was the right move.
Sure.
Because you're not going to be able to take her out then.
Sure. That is fair. And so it really comes down to how close is Charlie to Ben.
For Charlie's game, order of operations could very easily be Q at 7, Maria at 6, Kenzie at 5.
And then final
you're
4
home
roll
free.
the dice.
Yep.
Final 4, win at fire.
Or immunity,
Or
whatever
win
it
and,
is.
yeah, win and in.
Tribal Council time. Jeff is going to bring out some licorice. The question I have is it Twizzlers or Red Vines, and which one is better?
Twizzlers. Duh.
Twizzlers.
Interesting. I love both.
Okay.
I sometimes, I grew up on Twizzlers, and my favorite is the pull apart ones. Those are my favorite. But sometimes the only thing that'll hit is that artificial cardboard taster Red Vines.
You're weird.
We knew this.
Red Vine, sponsor us.
No, don't. Twizzlers sponsor us.
Either one. Both.
Now, Australian licorice.
No. It's fine. But I'd rather have Twizzlers and Red Vines.
Oh, okay.
At Tribal Council, Venus is going to call out Maria for the show she put on her award, which I thought was very funny. Maria's very offended by this. I just thought it was funny.
It's good luck for the jury.
And Q and Venus are going to get into it as well. It's great. It's just good. Jeff brought the licorice, and it was a good call.
Liz is gonna bare her soul for the 5th time in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I thought Liz for a second was gonna let it slip that Venus was in trouble, and that her name was being tossed out. So I thought that Venus was gonna end up playing her idol because Liz just talked too much.
Honestly, what's funny is clearly Liz was using Q as a smokescreen again, but she was kind of playing like the meta smokescreen.
Yep.
Q has been a smokescreen this whole time. Can we please get him gone? He's annoying me so badly. When we know darn well that Liz is voting for Venus.
Yep. She had me convinced. I'll give her that much.
Well, this was all truth. Everything that she was saying was the truth. The easiest smokescreen is the true one.
And what's funny is, again, this is the goat attacking the goat. Y'all 3 need each other, but she is signing her own death warrant.
Yep.
So it's good on you for helping to follow through with this plan that is literally the death knell to your game, in my opinion. Assuming a final 3, this is a death knell to Liz's game.
It's going to be 5 votes for Venus, 1 vote for Kenzie, 1 for Q. So Ben voted for Kenzie, I'm assuming just as like
Hinky
case
vote.
of idol or shot in the dark. And Venus voted for Q. But everyone else was in on the Venus vote. LOL, Venus goes home with an idol in her pocket. 3 in a row.
Obviously, harkens back to the beginning of the episode when she's talking about Tiff getting voted out with an idol in her pocket. She's going to think about that for the rest of her life.
Oh, that'd be the worst thing ever.
That'd be the worst thing ever. Editing gold.
Love it.
Shout out to our buddy Josh, because he said, foreshadowing? Foreshadowing? He's sitting on the couch right next to us.
Josh did call his shot during that Venus-Kenzie conversation during the idol hunts.
Didn't think it was going to be this episode, gonna be honest. Thought it was going to be something random at 6 or 5, but here we are.
Instant gratification.
See, I thought that would be hilarious if it was true, but I'm like, there's no way Venus is going home tonight. Shows what I know.
Which, by the way, can we just talk for a second? Our danger zones.
Oh yeah, rest in peace, our
Wow.
danger zone. For those who follow us on any sort of social media, 3 straight weeks where we had a perfect score in the worst way possible.
I still don't think anyone can blame us.
No. Well, okay. People can blame us for Tiffany. I stand by that one. That probably shouldn't have been number 1 for all of us. Venus, it's not like she had an idol going into the episode.
And I think we're all going to say this was a bad move overall.
And
Let's get into who
that.
should have gone home.
Yes.
Charlie.
Give me Charlie, give me Kenzie, give me anybody with a resume, because the GOATs, and I'm including Ben in on this at this point because he is on thin ice, need to come together and vote out a threat. So if that means that Ben has to somehow rally the troops to take out Kenzie because he wants to keep the Vibe Tribe strong for now, sure, then it should have been Kenzie. Charlie's a challenge beast, and people should be willing to vote for him. Game theory says one of them needs to go home here.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I understand that we're asking people to be something that they're not.
Correct.
Someone like Ben, I don't think is the type of person to do that. Other people, like I mentioned, are just not self-aware. That's just not a trait that they have. So we're asking them to do something that completely goes against who they actually are as people. But you still need to.
It still means they're playing poorly. We're not saying they're bad people. We're saying they're playing Survivor very poorly.
Ben is probably much better at like Rock Band than Survivor. Liz is probably really good at, I don't know, Parcheesi. I don't know. Venus is probably really good at mini golf. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Interesting.
They're good at something. It's not this.
What would Q be good at?
Football probably.
Yeah,
Not a sport. Not a sport.
Okay. Q is probably really good at beanbags, cornhole.
I was gonna say cornhole.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I could totally see him being really good at that.
Yep.
I don't know. We've seen him do some pretty goofy, underhanded stuff in the challenges
That's
this
true.
season.
He's been really bad with sandbags.
Okay, ultimate frisbee then.
I'll say that Q has an eye for fashion. I mean, have you seen the Q skirt?
The Q skirt. What did Twitter have to say?
Yeah, Twitter, 62% were on the side of no, the right person did not go.
Now that's because Twitter, and I shudder when I say this, but this is the Gen Z speak. Twitter calls Venus mother, and mother has now gone home. So there you go.
What the bleep? Do they really call her mother?
I don't know if they call Venus mother.
They absolutely call Venus mother. Even I don't go on social media, I see enough of those clickbaity articles on my Google Discover saying Twitter refers to Castaway as mother, and then it's some AI generated filler article with absolutely nothing of substance in it. So like, don't do it. But yeah, Twitter calls Venus mother.
The last mother that I remember seeing was Carolyn. Carolyn was mother on Twitter, at least.
Any of our listeners who are referring to Venus as mother,
Don't.
are you okay? Sorry. Do you need help?
You know what? And by the way, this is coming from someone who has loved having Venus on this season.
Venus is great.
She was never going to win.
Nope.
But she's absolutely in the Abby Maria tier for me, where she just doesn't give a crap, and she makes the season so much more fun.
Bring Venus back.
Bring her back.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, Josh, Venus is kind of one of the
No.
character types that you hate. You're not a fan. Do you want to see Venus back?
Absolutely not.
So, okay, and the other part of when it comes to people who come back, something you always want is like, can they do something different? Can they get better?
Sure.
Will we see something different? You don't think we'll see something different from Venus after she's watched herself?
No,
Okay.
because of how blatantly unaware she was on this season. If she had some sort of like epiphany throughout the season and she just wasn't able to steer it back on track, okay, answer would probably be different. I don't think that she is the type of person who convinced herself that she was making all the right moves throughout the season and that she had a hand in so many different things. When she was a pawn in someone else's game, I would bet that when she's watching the show on TV, it's the exact same thing. Okay. She was thinking that, you know, either it was her moves or maybe she was wronged in some sort of way, and that, you know, the way that she was playing the game was correct.
Okay. I want her back.
Because of the way she played, I want her back immediately. I want her back on 50, right? Because I think we've found out that is likely to be a returning season.
Yeah.
I want her back. That said, she would otherwise be in that cat tier for me, where I really like her. I think that she's a good person. I think if she were to wait 7 or 8 years to go back on the show, she would be able to bring a lot because she would have the production experience side of things,
Sure.
but she would also have a little more life experience, a little more self-awareness, almost de facto. Maybe. You never know. You never know, but I'm just trying to increase likelihood
There's
here.
plenty of old people who have no self-awareness.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But they also, a lot of those old people who are on the show who don't have the self-awareness haven't been on the show already.
Yeah.
So if you want Venus to bring something new, I would say wait 6, 7, 8 years to bring her back. But because she is so fun, and not just because the edit is dunking on her all the time, just because I love that chaotic energy when it somehow manages to like survive, bring her back. I love Venus.
All right, let's get into best and worst player of the episode. I'll start us out. Best player, almost by default, it's Charlie. He survived the vote. No one even came close to targeting him when they should have. And he was also the one to comfort Kenzie after tribal council before anyone else did. So Charlie's my best player of the episode.
I actually went in a different direction. I gave it to Maria because she saved herself. I hated the choices that she made with the reward. Or I guess I don't hate that she did it. I hated how she went about doing that. But ultimately, anybody going home is good for her game. And she did, for lack of a better phrase, build a resume further this game. Even if it did create a bit of a villain out of her, I don't think that's going to affect how the jury votes at the end at this point. So I gave it to Maria.
I had a really hard time with this. I was bouncing back and forth between Charlie and Maria. I haven't, considered Kenzie for a split second. But I ended up landing on Charlie. The biggest thing is that I just don't know if this was the right move for him. And like I said earlier, it's going to come down to whether or not he can get the votes together to vote out Maria. If he can't, then he's definitely not the best player of the episode. So if I am able to, reserve the ability to change this at some point in the future, but that's going to be very results oriented.
Sure.
In that case, because in that scenario, it should be Maria instead. But right now, I'm going to go with Charlie.
Okay. Worst player, Derek, who do you got?
This was, again, almost de facto. I gave it to Q because Q can no longer win the game, assuming a final 3, and we're always going to go forward. I think we have to at this point, assuming a final 3. By sending Venus home, only Liz has a chance of being below him on the tier list, in my opinion. Even if Ben's not doing much, people generally really like Ben, and I think that he would win over Q and over Liz. So I have Q as a de facto, but there was so much poor gameplay across the board that, I mean, it's not as close as it should have been.
I went with Liz here. It actually also goes back to something I said earlier in the episode, where I think that the unaware people get a little bit of a pass here just because they're wanting to target, let's say Q, just because he potentially could be a threat, or maybe he's someone who is a new number 1 to Maria and needs to be taken out. Sure, great. Liz just wants to take him out because she has beef with him, and she wants to fulfill her revenge on Q. And that's just such a bad move on her part, let alone the fact that she needs him in order to win the game. She potentially could have won the game in a crazy Liz Q Venus final 3. That doesn't end up being the case. So partly blaming her for wanting to target Q, and partly blaming her for then instead taking out Venus.
I agree with Josh. I have Liz. I think both Liz and Q, obviously this hurts. But I already had Q in the could not win category. By taking out Venus, Liz now falls into that category where she could win before. Now she can't. And let's say they were tied. Q and Liz there. Liz did lash out a little bit more at Maria, and in Q. I mean, I don't think it did. You can't get much worse with the relationship between Liz and Q right now. But talking so much smack, and he was right there. That wasn't good either. So a tiebreaker, Liz.
And actually, I want to switch it to Liz because of something that I actually thought of after I took my notes. I'm switching it to Liz. I will talk about it once we get to the dank down.
Okay. Let's get into who is going next. Down to the final 6. Josh, who's going next?
It's Maria's time. It's going to completely come down to whether or not she wins immunity. I think she probably would have gone home tonight if it wasn't for the fact that she won immunity. For some reason, no one's talking about Charlie, and no one's really talking about Kenzie either. Her only shot is going to be if she can get the attention onto one of them two. I don't think any of the 3 remaining goats are going to have any sort of attention now that Venus is gone. There might be a little bit on Q just for the sake of mentioning it. But I think people are going to get their priorities straight now, and we're finally going to get on to taking out some big threats again. Well,
next time on Survivor, there's 2 names mentioned in that, and then Maria and Q as potential targets. So I'm going to assume they're both going to survive. How does that happen? I'm going to assume blowback on either Charlie maybe making a move and it blows up in his face, or safe vote, we just take out Kenzie next. So I think Kenzie is going to go next because I still think Charlie's going to win the game. So I think it'll be a much ado about nothing, pretty straightforward Kenzie vote.
My thought process is similar to Ryan's, absent Hubicki's hypothesis.
Law.
I had Charlie going home next, just because I think that going with Maria might be too straightforward. And if you're trying to damage the Sega 3, taking out Charlie, who does have a strong social connection to Ben and a strong social connection to Kenzie, it does make sense for all of them to want to take him out as something to add to their resume. I can't tell you why I feel like that's going to happen over Maria. It doesn't feel like it's Maria's time anymore. Not yet. It will be, but not yet.
Okay. Now, let's get into the rank downs, dank downs, jank downs, and lank downs. Mine does not change. Mine still goes Maria, Charlie, Kenzie, Ben, Liz, and Q. So yeah, Ben, Liz, Q, final 3. Ben wins, and then Liz beats Q in the final 2.
So I actually did have a little bit of movement. We lost Tiffany last week. We're losing Venus tonight. Pluck Venus out. We're going to have Maria at the top still, followed by Kenzie, Charlie, Ben. And the reason I am switching my vote to Liz being the worst is I now have Q over Liz, because I think Liz is incredibly unself-aware, has these emotional outbursts, which we've seen that lose Dawn the game.
Yep.
Like needing
True.
to be emotionally consoled all the time, and kind of making a lot of situations about her and inserting herself into situations that don't need to have anything to do with her about her. At the very least, at the end, Q could say, I didn't outwit you. I didn't outplay you. But you can't say, I didn't outlast you. I don't know that Liz can actually say that she did any of that, because she was being much more outbursty with her emotions, where it's like, okay, you didn't even keep your composure for that long. At least Q, when he was saying vote me out, he wasn't flipping out about it. He was just like, it wasn't a big to do. It wasn't a brouhaha. He's just like, if you want to vote me out, go ahead. I'm asking for it. So I move Liz down.
Okay. Josh?
Much like Derek, my only two things that I changed were the bottom two. So from the top, everything is staying the same, with Maria first, then Charlie, then Kenzie, then Ben, and then Q, and then Liz. Final two, I just don't see how Liz wins the game. She hasn't done anything right. Q, at least Q did some things right early in the game. He just has to get past people being really mad at him. And I think once you fast forward to Final Tribal, unless you have like this is why Ben is above Q. Because if it's Ben and Q in the end, okay, you have a reason to vote for Ben. Like, you just like him.
And that's why Liz can beat Q.
And that's why Liz can't beat Q, because people also don't like Liz.
I think a couple people don't like Liz. Almost nobody likes Q. The only person who likes Q is Maria.
I think they'll find reasons. I think they'll find reasons to give it to him if that is the case.
I think if it's a final two and it's Liz and Q, I think Q would have much more to say in that final tribal council, and everyone would be going in looking for something.
I would say he probably has too much to say and might dig himself a bigger hole. He does that when he talks too much.
He might have too much to say, but at least he has something to say.
Liz has something to say. It's very little, and people like her more. But, whatever.
Liz could say, it was my idea to vote out Tevin. And then Q would say, yeah. And then you freaked out and said that I stole all the thunder. So, who did more? I feel like relative to Q, and by targeting Q constantly in a final two situation, Q could be like, Liz, you've been gunning for me for what?
Right.
5 vote outs? Don't got me? I'm still here. So it's wild. I don't feel good about my bottom two, but I have them.
Let's get into what the listeners had to say.
Yeah, and this is for at the end of the last episode. So the listeners, they also only changed the bottom of their rankings. So from the top, they had Charlie, then Maria, then Kenzie, then Ben. And then they had Liz dropping all the way to the bottom, which means Venus on their list. If it's a final three, Liz, Q, and Venus, that Venus wins that game, in their opinion. So Venus was third to last, then Q, and then Liz.
Okay. Craziness.
Wild.
We'll see what happens next time. Where can people send us their Lank Downs?
You can send us it anywhere on social media. So Castaway Pod is Twitter and Instagram. Castaway Consultants is TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, which is where you can find our videos as well. Send us DMs anywhere. Oh, and Threads.
Oh, yeah.
Never forget Threads.
That exists.
That's out there. Reach out to us anywhere, along with on Spotify.
Yep, it'll always be the question at the end of the episode. So if you're listening to the episode right now, here's your call to action. Hopefully I have the question up. If not, just wait 15 minutes. It'll be there.
And speaking of social media, we did have a couple of other questions if we wanted to
us.
address them. One from Blake. He said, I don't have the stats, but it seems like people are holding on to their idols way more in the new era. I think this actually came up a couple of weeks ago
last week
on the podcast. And I feel like people play them a lot more than before. Why the change? Are players just better at making people feel safe because they have 45 seasons of data?
Yeah, I think people are really working hard at making people feel safe, especially with the Shot in the Dark edition of the show. That's probably why.
I don't really have much else to add because I was mistaken in thinking that people were much better at playing their idols in the new era. I haven't gone back and actually checked the receipts on that, but Ryan is our resident input on Survivor. So I almost have to trust him and maybe go back and do some more homework. So I'll have to try and get back to Blake on that one.
It might be a confidence thing too. People are just overly confident and
People are definitely overly confident.
wanting to wait to use their idol until it's for a big move late in the game, and it just never comes.
Yeah, the opportune moment, but they wave at it as it passes by.
Yeah, they want to play it perfectly. They don't want to waste it. But yeah, if you're on the show, let people be overconfident. That is deadly.
Mm-hmm. And then we did an additional 2 questions from Brandon, who mentioned before. First, if Venus doesn't talk about her tricks up her sleeve to Charlie, does Q go home tonight?
Possibly.
I think that changed his mind.
I think
personally.
that helped for sure. Definitely a better chance of not going home. It did not help her.
Just let it happen. Just let the alliance happen.
Yeah, this is all we can do is offer opinions on this, right? It didn't help her. I think she'd already established her reputation as the chaotic player, and if Charlie's goal was to get rid of that chaotic energy, sort of that bad vibe around camp, because he's on the vibe tribe and Nami definitely was not, it doesn't help. That's all we can say, I think.
It's also probably important to note that subtlety is not Venus's strong suit.
What?
So she can never just let something be and then just walk away.
Sure.
It feels like she just keeps needing to add on to the conversation.
She's last word.
Yep. And that played against her here.
She's the gas and the match.
There you go. And then we did, like I said, one other one here. So he said, not sure of the rules for this, but more of just an interesting thought. Would Venus have been able to tell Charlie about that idol and say, I'm going to hide this idol somewhere, and if I come back tonight, it's yours?
Yep.
If I do not, I'm going to tell Kenzie where it's at.
Okay.
I don't know about the second part of that.
Yeah, I don't know how she'd be able to do the second part. She could definitely do the first part. Like, yeah, I'll hide it back at camp. It's yours if you want it. She could do that for sure. I don't know how she'd be able to tell the Kenzie where it is, because if she said it at travel on her way out, like, hey, there's that under the shelter, everyone hears that.
Well, I was gonna say, I think the rule might be if Venus has not transferred possession of it. It doesn't matter where she hit it.
It could be a dead idol, yeah.
It would be gone. And I think that's where the beginning of that, I don't know the rules on this. I think the rules are if she's not transferred possession before the votes are starting to be read or past that point, it's a dead idol. So I don't think that works. There might be a way to use that mechanism. I'm not sure what it would be, but it wouldn't work like that. We'd have to workshop that.
Yeah.
I like the first part, though.
All right, last thing we got to do is check in with our survivor pool. We did the reset last week, and so going into this episode, I had Liz, and you used one of your 2 Bens.
Indeed.
All right, Derek. Who are you picking in the pool?
Well, Ryan, you never should have given me 2 Bens.
I also have 2 Bens, so.
Because I'm taking Ben again. I'm locking it in. I think we're going to see Ben in the finale, and I want to make sure that I have used him before then.
Okay.
Because all bets are off after that.
I'm going to trust in the law of Hubicki, and I'm going to pick Q.
Theory.
I think Q is going to do some more smoke screening, and he's not going anywhere, so I have Q as not going next.
All right, it'll be an interesting finale then if you guys both make it through, and we'll have to talk about what ends up happening right before the finale.
We will see. All right, you can follow us on Twitter at Castaway Pod. And yeah, check out all of our other social media. Is there anything else you guys would...
Yes, we have 3 quick things.
Okay.
1, Josh played Survivor Trivia this last week
Oh, yes.
and did not win.
Boo. Shame.
I'm sorry.
What kind-
Once again, I already said I am the memorability correspondent with a terrible memory.
The next thing, we were remiss last week. We lost the first ever boot of Survivor recently. So rest in peace, Sonia.
Sonia Christopher.
Bye-bye Blues.
Yep. Very first person ever voted out of Survivor.
And absolutely beloved in the Survivor community, and by all accounts, a wonderful person. So
rest in peace.
Rest in peace on that. No good segue into this, but I just wanted to present one final thought on this season to you guys. I talked to you a little bit about this before we got on the mic, but this messy season, it feels like the players left are kind of turning this into last move Survivor rather than best resume or being best player throughout. Charlie's entire strategy is, yeah, I'm second fiddle to Maria, but as long as I take out Maria, I absorb all of her strength.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this fail for Cassidy in a previous season where Gabler ended up winning.
I don't think it was the same comparison.
I want to point out to everyone that I think that playing last move Survivor is incredibly risky.
Yeah.
and it might blow up in Charlie's face. Kenzie was thinking about this with her timing of taking out Tiff, and we saw that kind of blow up in her face a little bit. So timing is everything in Survivor. Cochran said it best. He didn't outwit, play, outlast, but he outtimed them. I love that speech. But last move Survivor is a very risky way to play, and you need to make sure you're sitting next to the right people. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on last move versus best move Survivor.
Do both.
I think my only rebuttal, because it is very difficult to play the perfect game of Survivor.
I understand that.
So my main rebuttal to that is I would much rather play last move Survivor than swing too early. So if I'm, Charlie, I don't think I would want to take out someone like Maria this week, because then I'm probably the target next week at 6. And if I win immunity, I'm the target at 5.
Maybe. Ultimately, doesn't matter. You can't take a swing if you literally can't take the swing. So it doesn't matter right now because you can't take her out. All right. This has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.